Well, welcome everyone to Unloose the Goose. Is it episode 45 or 46?
I think it's 46.
46. All right. We've almost made it to the big 5-2, which will be our 1-year anniversary. On today, I have Jack Spirko from the Survival Podcast. I have Neethi, the pharmacist from Farm to Fork Meat Riot. So excited to have you guys here. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. And we will be talking about backup plans and putting them into place when you have big changes come up. The inspiration for this episode came from a guy named Matthew who does Agorist Tax Advice. We talked about him last week a little bit too. AgoristTaxAdvice.com, who had the audacity to start a side hustle. And then in order to promote said side hustle, went on Jack Spirko's show and talked about his side hustle on his own time. Talked about his side hustle. Somebody mentioned to his boss that they had heard him on Jack's show and dude was fired.
That is so foul.
For being disloyal because somebody's boss doesn't have the foresight to realize he could have totally monetized that too. But
And somebody's boss is an ambulance chasing jackass that probably advertises the cheap leftover time on the freaking whatever is the modern equivalent of the Jerry Springer show, because I don't think Springer's actually on anymore. Like, you know, when you're sitting at home with your leg up and you're watching, like, have you been hurt? Maybe you've been hurt and you don't know that you're hurt. Come see, like that, like kind of firm. And they fired him because he had the audacity to work on his own. And that's what we call an unexpected consequence to really a positive thing, right?
yeah,
Because we're all creators.
we are. And here's a guy who's specializing in finding those loopholes that we talk about on this show all the time, right?
Yep.
Now he's looking for more clients. He's just had his income just eliminated like that. And when I talked to him about it, he's like, well, this pays my basic expenses. And as long as I add clients from here, I'll be fine. Or I could just go get another job because I am a lawyer and I do have
Yeah,
credentials.
it's not like he's unskilled or something.
Yeah,
right?
somebody else who's smart will just hire me, right? So he already had several backups in place. He's been in our network, he's been in Jack's network for a long time, you know, where you teach modern day survival, which is preparing for the likely things to happen, like a job loss. And that preparation sets you up if the weird, unlikely things happen, because preparing for the little things helps you when a big thing happens. But when we think about backup plans, what other times in your lives have you had to deal with backup plans?
When the Arctic vortex descended upon us and shut our power off for 4 days and it didn't go above 9 degrees for those 4 days, that was the high of 9 degrees in Fort Worth, Texas. If I just said every word that I said and I was like, and I live in Boston, you would have been like, well, no
Whatever.
doubt, stupid, right? But like to go 4 days in Dallas, Texas area and have a high of 9 degrees is literally unprecedented. It doesn't exist in modern history. We did not hit the all-time absolute low. We were 1 degree away from it, but consecutive days below freezing was 11 days. That's never happened in recorded history in the Dallas area before. And had we not had backup plans, we would have looked like all the people around us. I would have looked like during that, I ended up like once like the streets were cleared enough to go out and what have you.
Yeah.
I ended up going to like Quick Trip or something like that. You've been down here, Nicole. You know, we have like these just ridiculously giant convenience store gas station things where they sell all kinds of food rolling around on disgusting greasy rollers.
Yeah.
And there were literally people like bundled up inside the store because the store had power back before. They tried to get the stores and stuff back up first, which makes sense. And they were warming their hands over the rolling hot dogs. And of course they had their masks on to protect themselves. And yeah, having backup generators and fuel and stuff like that, you know, that was running your stove off gas, etc., backup heat, that made all the difference in the world. And that was very, very recent. And, you know, you can talk about being prepared for winter, but most people, even that fancy themselves preppers, would never really prepare for that in North Texas because it's not a thing. You don't do, like, that doesn't happen.
You know, your buddy David during that storm did
He
something
suffered a
really,
little.
Yeah, you know what he did to keep his
And he was
pipes?
prepared, and he still suffered.
He suffered, but he took terracotta pots
Yep.
and put candles in them under and had the doors open to under his sinks and things in his bathrooms. And he didn't have burst pipes later.
He did.
I understand a lot of other people did.
Yeah, I had one broken pipe, and I went several days without water in spite of being very well prepared. We had water. We didn't have water pressure because power went out at 3:15 in the morning. And by the time I was able to get out of bed and realize the power was out, the well had already frozen. So that was an example of like where I messed up because we knew it was coming, but we didn't know we would get without power. What I should have done for that, I should have fired up the generators. I should have put on everything on generator power before we went to bed that night.
Yeah.
So that's, even though we did well, like we could have done better, and now we know. But hopefully, I won't ever be able to use that experience because I don't want to ever see the 65,000 acre lake that's down here from Lake Worth. I don't ever want to see that frozen solid. I mean, I really need to convey to people how unprecedented this was. We have a 65,000 acre lake that froze completely solid in Texas in March. Like, it'd be one thing to happen in January. It happened in March. Like, yeah, I don't want to ever do that again. And people walked on it. I sent you a picture, Nicole, of people walking on it. Like, you're like, there's a river that runs through that lake, right?
you know you're going to die if the ice.
It's only been frozen for like 2 days. There's no way to know if the ice is thick everywhere or whatever. And yeah, that was greatness. Yeah, we learned how incompetent law enforcement was too, because we're like, my wife's like, somebody's going to die. I'm like, I feel bad. But what are we going to do? She's like, we need to call 911. I'm like, okay, you do that. Right. So she calls 911, and we live in Tarrant County. We end up in Parker County because of the cell phones like being jacked up during it. And they're like, no, you can't call us. We don't do that. So if we finally get through, like, they transfer us to Tarrant County 911, and then we get the sheriff's department because that's who takes care of us. And they're like, well, we don't do that. And we're like, okay, well, it's in Lake Worth. Can I talk to the right person? We get through the Lake Worth police, and they go, yeah, well, the lake's in Lake Worth, but we don't control the lake. So then we got
we can't drive out and just say, hey, you're being an idiot.
Yeah. So we have to call Fort Worth PD. So we finally get through to Fort Worth PD, who said, that's Lake Worth. And like, I'm finally like, you know what, honey, you do what you want. But I believe Darwinism is in action right now, and we just need to be at peace with it.
Well, that was just a really good illustration of how centralized planning does not work well.
But what will we do in an anarchy?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, no.
Stop your car and yell, you're being an idiot. Get off the lake.
They'd be so busy blaming each other, nothing would happen.
I have a side story on that. The little liquor store, Nicole, that's like a mile from my house now.
Yeah.
There's a chick that works there, and she's like, I told her about it. She goes, I think that's my homegirl. And I'm like, what? I said, well, look at this. She goes, oh, that's her. And I'm like, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but that's not smart. She goes, oh, no, she's stupid. Anyway, back to backup plans.
Okay. Neethi, when have you needed a backup plan?
Dude, we use backup plans every day. Every day we got a backup to the backup of the backup plan. If you are, well, I'm not even farming. I'm working with farmers. Yeah. And I have to have a backup plan for the backup plan. And I got to help the farms think of what the backup plan of the next backup plan would be. But I think one of our biggest backup plan situations is, we have livestock all over the ground, and we only use soy-free, GMO-free, organic feed, which isn't available everywhere.
No.
So, and honestly, until I had been doing this probably 5 or 6 years, there wasn't any in the state of North Carolina. And even now there's only one feed mill that has it here. So we have backups with people who we know. We have backups in Virginia, in Tennessee, in Georgia, and in South Carolina. And we got
farmers need to be growing their fodder.
Well, we're doing all of that too. I mean, we're growing a lot of our own feed. and we're doing everything we can to have feed freedom generally also. So, we're using a lot of raw milk and a lot of local barley. And we've also realized that we don't have to use some of the very complex feeds that everybody thinks that they have to have. So that's just one example of our backups of the back, because you can't have heartbeats on the ground with no food to eat.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I see people what ifing a lot in our comments and stuff about starting a business or moving to another place. And that I understand the instinct to what if yourself. Some people over rotate to the point where they've just spent 6 months what ifing themselves about something and never get there. But the kind of what ifing that people aren't necessarily doing is the important what ifing, which is what's my backup plan? Like if you throw an event, I have events here and my water is dependent on electricity. What happens if I have no electricity? I have no water. If you have 60 people on your property and no running water, you have a problem. Therefore, my first backup plan is a generator. My second backup plan, because you need a backup plan on your backup plan, is an inverter. And then there's a second generator. And all of that starts, what happens from there is buckets. We get the bucket brigade from.
You have a creek?
Yeah.
You have a creek, you have a Berkey.
Yeah. So
I have rain catchment tanks in a Berkey, and that's our thought too. Like, the water will be safe, filtered or not, once it goes to the coffee maker and it's 180 degrees for a while. Like, drink coffee. Like, but you're right. Like, and doesn't that like make it where you just go ahead and do the thing?
Yeah.
Like, that's the beauty of the backup plan. The backup plan is not just so that you'll be okay if the other thing happens. It's also so you'll do whatever the original thing is, right?
Right. What's my primary
throw an event
directive?
And make enough money to pay your mortgage for a quarter or more, right?
Or raise animals better and don't be worried about all of that. I mean, we were just, because people kept saying you can't do it this way. You can't have cleaner livestock. But I mean, from a business perspective, I was saying because we were going cleaner and cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were raising the livestock. But I mean, from a business perspective, you should. I've had, how many backup plans have I had about, because I didn't try to do this business. It just kind of was the thing that I needed to do, I guess. And then I have to figure out how to profit.
Yeah. How about this? My number one way to grow my business last year, going into the year plans wise, was to be either speaking at or a vendor at multiple large conference like events.
Yeah, that was what mine was. And I was launching my book, and everything was done. Done. Yep.
I grew anyway.
Me too.
Because
you had to make a hard decision though, Nicole.
I did.
Right, with investment. I remember you called me or you emailed something. Maybe we voice chatted something where you needed to buy like enough beans to, if everything worked, supply all the coffee to everybody for the rest of the year.
Because
and if you didn't, you might not be able to later. And if you did and you didn't sell them, then your money's gone.
Yes.
I had to sign a lease. I had to live in a commercial space. So that also happened because I was working out of free space. And then now the mob decided that was unsafe and were calling the city and reporting us all the freaking time. So I had to sign a lease with all these unknowns of like, what's going to happen next year? Are we going to be able,
So let's look at both of those. Let's go back to Nicole first. Like, so what would you have done if you didn't sell all the beans?
I probably would have sold all the beans.
So your backup plan was sell the beans.
No, really, Nicole. Well, so if I had, here's how this is what I finally came to. It wasn't my money I was spending. I had to borrow money to buy all those beans.
Oh, okay.
Because it was not at my usual cycle. And so I didn't have the cash flow, but I was buying for the rest of the year. And so my risk was that I would not be able to pay back money. And it was a friend, so they could be understanding, but that's worse for me, right?
It's way worse. It's way worse.
I finally came to, if the supply chain is done, people are going to want coffee.
Yep.
So I can sell the coffee if that happens, as long as they have money. If society like goes into some weird dystopian financial meltdown to where they can't buy the coffee,
You got
I
other
can
problems.
trade the coffee.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I just decided it was worth the risk. Now, if I hadn't have been able to sell the coffee, I probably would have sold it for less money to sell it. I didn't see, unless something so major happened, that I wasn't going to be able to move forward at all. And at that point, I could tell the friend, yeah, so I'm paying you in cigarettes and alcohol or something, because we're going to start trading this.
Well, and the other thing was, you were never going to not sell any of the coffee.
Right.
Right. The question was, would you sell all the coffee? Right.
Yeah.
So your risk was mitigated to begin with, in that even partial failure was still partial ability to make remittance on the debt. Right. So like, and you were going to, sooner or later, since you were buying green beans and you only roast to order.
Right.
You would have sold them all. It just might have took longer. Right.
They're gone.
Right.
Yeah. They've been gone.
They're gone. This is a non-issue point, but like, eventually your backup plan became, I will adapt my business to make sure that the beans go away.
Right.
Right. So Neethi, what was your backup plan for Karen's calling the federal, the local authorities on you? Right.
Yeah. Well, I had to get everybody involved, invested. And I wanted to, one thing I knew for sure is that if everything was headed in the direction that I was observing and that I felt like it was going to go into, people are still going to want meat, and they're not going to get it anywhere, and I would have the meat. So like the coffee beans, people want coffee and they want a steak. They want it,
and not a lab grown steak, by gum.
Yeah, they're going to get some beef. I mean, I felt like I definitely knew that people were going to need the meat. So, and I knew they weren't going to be able to get it anywhere else. And I just needed to, but I'm working with a community. So part of my prepping, like you guys, everybody has a different way of prepping things. And I've been prepping more through community than I have been just, I guess, on my own. And there's a lot of risk involved with that, I guess, but I feel very secure with the community that I've established. And, we've been tested. Like when our daughter was sick, then our community came to our, everybody came and was there for us for years. It wasn't like they were just there for a minute. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's part of the reason that I feel very confident with our community. But I didn't know the power of our community until we went through that experience. I mean, I don't want to wish anybody on that kind of extreme experience, but I will say that our community was tested when that happened.
So community is a backup plan.
Yeah, my community
is. If I would say community is John Willis, if you're out there and you make all these great T-shirts, community is the backup plan.
Yeah.
You get some cool person doing air quotes around it or something.
Well, and that was the other part of it. Like the eaters rose in one part, and then I had to pivot again. I had to pivot twice. And I mean, I feel like I'm pivoting even yet a third time, but it's for something bigger and better. And the thing that I had planned for last year didn't go at all how I planned, but the growth and the expansion, man, I didn't think this much growth would have happened last year. And especially I'm still set up for more growth this year. And already we're experiencing, a rapid growth. So, I mean, wasn't what I was expecting, but my community definitely stepped up. It was both the eater side and then the producer side. And people are surprising me. My community is surprising me left, right, and center. And I'm so appreciative of them. I'm so appreciative of all of them.
Let's put a pin in community for a second, because I want to come back to that. But there is something in part of your backup plan is when things go sideways, double down on your aggression toward your goals.
Yes.
Because Nicole, if you remember back, right, when the COVID shit started, I was like, okay, this is not as new as people think. Yes, it's a new virus, but we've had coronaviruses. The survival rate's through the roof. This is nothing to lose your shit over. Chill out. And then the government's like, yeah, well, we're going to act like it is. And I'm like, oh, fuck. right? Like, okay, you're going to do this. And I'm like, when it became totally evident they were going to start doing lockdowns and all this crap, I'm like, okay, so we're fixing to go through some shit. Yeah. That first week, I did 3 shows. You were one of them. Mm-hmm. So the very first show I did, I had Doc Bones on, and we talked about, this is what we know so far about the virus. This is what you can do to protect yourself. And most of us, we don't really know, except, hey, here's how the numbers break down, and don't trust China, right? Next day, I had you on, and what did we talk about? Side
hustles.
We talked about building a business, the beginning. I mean, it was literally the most early days of the pandemic, and we got on and said, build your fucking business now. And then the next day, I had Pugliano on, and we talked about how to invest to make money during the pandemic. That was the first 3 shows we did at the real onset of it. And that's what you're talking about with, I bought the beans because I'm going to sell the fucking beans. I doubled down on my food business because no matter what, people got to eat. And when you lock people in their house and tell them they can't go to the grocery store, they tend to buy food from other fucking places. So I think like part of the backup plan is, as much as I hate the guy, is the Warren Buffett philosophy, is acting counter to the mob.
Yeah.
Right. So Buffett's basically, you can go read a book this fucking thick by Warren Buffett, and this is what you're going to get from it. One freaking, 2 sentences. Buy shit when people are selling and sell shit when people are buying.
Which means don't buy canning lids right now, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So it's like basically be brave when others are cowards and be coward when others are brave. That's actually how he phrases it. Like, and he doesn't mean to actually be a coward. He means that basically like when everybody's sure there's nowhere to go but up and buying, sell all the fucking shit. And when everybody starts screaming that the sky's falling and to sell everything, wait just a little bit and then buy all the shit. And like, this is what all of us did in different ways. I bought 2 fucking cars at the beginning of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And the reason why was when we went in to buy the cars, the car salesman pretty much like dropped their pants and said, what do you want? Like, it was anything that they could do, they would do. And I'm like, well, like, I want a Challenger and my wife needs a new car. Yeah. And people are like, you bought 2 new cars? I'm like, well, yeah. And that's part of your backup plan, is going counter to the herd. Because the herd is lemmings going off the Walt Disney cliff that was fake, right? Like that's what the herd does. Like literally everything the herd does ends up being the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whenever they say go up, go down. I mean, that's what I've been saying forever. I'm like, if the institutions are saying go up, go down, because you're going to win if you go opposite. Whatever they say, whatever's happening.
If they tell you
something really smart, Jack, that I don't think you know. So at that time when there was not meat in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what can I buy meat from a farmer nearby? They found her. And she made them sign up for memberships, a subscription service.
Yeah, you want meat? You're gonna buy meat for a while.
Yeah. And,
I will sell you a steak today.
That thing that happened to a lot of farmers where they got all these new local customers and were super excited, and then poof, Walmart's open.
Going away.
Yeah.
They all went away because, Kroger's is restocked again. I don't need you anymore. Yeah. Now I'll go there and buy this crap for $1 less a pound, even though it's garbage.
Yep.
They're going to be out of meat again this next fall when, something happens again. Because did you notice how right around the 4th of July, there's already a fuel problem?
And there's a super duper serial Delta variant of the thing that we're not supposed to talk about.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we don't get banned.
Also, did you know that you shouldn't eat that much meat and that they're going to create a pill to help you?
Oh, I heard about that.
Not crave it. And I was like,
no, it's way worse than not crave it. Nicole, did you hear about this?
No.
I know she did because she's talking.
Have an aversion to it. Have an aversion to it.
This freaking waddle transhumanist dude, I can't think of his name.
Connect us with the Delta, whatever. What is it?
No. This is separate. This is like, so he was like, he's lactose intolerant. Surprise. Yeah. Right. So he's like, when I drink milk or I eat cheese, I feel really sick. And that's because of the predisposition that I have. Well, we could make a pill or a shot that would make people feel that way when they ate meat. And then they would become vegetarians
which would be good for them. Which this maniac is going to be good for them and the planet and the ecosystem and whatever. And I was like,
sounds like bioterrorism to me.
Yes, maybe.
Because that was is that the same?
I was like, it's time for this.
The alpha gall, right? We should just give everybody alpha gall so they're allergic to meat and can't eat it.
Right, which was a GMO tick, and they've released these creatures into nature, and nature is still standing up and still managing to. We're all adaptable. So what's our backup? Well, nature got a backup plan, doesn't it? Nature is
called evolution. And maybe we shouldn't fuck with that. I'm just saying, like, that's my backup plan.
That's
Don't
right.
go fucking with evolution.
Do not stop the
work with it.
Well, I've been talking about, the medical interference is what creates all these problems in the first place. And the interference with nature. How do these folks believe that interfering with nature is ever going to give you a win?
They
it's like watch a sci-fi movie. It's
kind of like this idea to stop global warming by blocking out the sun in our atmosphere. Which what could possibly go wrong with that?
The Simpsons made an episode about that. And guess who blocked out the sun? Mr. Burns, the most evil bastard on the show. Like, you don't.
I guess it's good that they're starting to grow indoors now. Like, yeah.
Who blocked the sun?
Well,
Mr. Burns.
Yeah.
No,
but they are legitimately talking about releasing things into our atmosphere to block the sun.
I love how everything's already been written in every show and movie in The Simpsons.
On the whole global warming thing, I don't buy into the whole principle. But if you do, and you're against nuclear power, you're full of shit.
Wait, okay, so which part of it? Because are we releasing too much carbon, and can we do a better job with our microclimate using beef? Yes.
Wait a minute. No, wait. Microclimate, CO2. Different shit, because CO2 is global climate that they're claiming. Okay, so let me just give you a fact about CO2. This is scientific fact. This is not debatable. CO2 does reflect UV light, okay? And it does it very well up to a certain concentration in the atmosphere because it only reflects certain wavelengths of UV light. This is called the saturation limit. We've known about it from sometime like in the 1860s, 1870s. That's how old this science is. The amount of CO2 that can do this, we surpassed a long time ago. You could triple the CO2 in the atmosphere. You won't reflect any more UV light. It won't work. It won't do it. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't have effect. And what they base the entire global warming theory, and I emphasize theory instead of fact on this, is 4 other feedbacks. The primary, which is that we're creating a more humid atmosphere because the number one greenhouse gas we have is fucking water vapor, right? Well, the problem is that there's no correlation of the rise in basic humidity. And if you look at the warming on our planet versus the warming on like Mars, they track almost perfectly. So you're not getting a warmer planet due to CO2. You just aren't. Doesn't mean that we can go mine fossil fuels like crazy and all the other shit they do wrong and not cause problems. It doesn't mean that we can't go like turn an area into desert with bad agricultural practices and fuck shit up. Doesn't mean that we're like, the decided thing is 99.8% of scientists believe that humans are causing climate change. I believe humans are causing climate change. I just don't believe your theory you're throwing out.
Right.
But if you do,
is one thing, right?
But if you do believe that theory, the single most efficient way known to human beings that you can produce carbon zero energy, nuclear power. On demand and adjustable. You can throttle it up, you can throttle it down, you can make more. It is the best way. And all of the FUD around nuclear energy is based on like the nuclear energy plants we built in the 1960s. I don't know if anybody's looked at your calendar lately, but it's not 1965, right? Yeah. We'll look at Fukushima. Well, I'm really suggesting we don't build nuclear power plants on fault lines on the ocean. that's probably a bad idea. But that's neither here nor there. But I don't even know how we got there. But
I mean, wasn't
It
that
was
part
a good
of the plan?
Jack rant, though.
I mean, wasn't that part of a plan, Jack? I mean,
well, a plan would be like, let's not have the fucking grid go down in the middle of a polar vortex, right?
Yeah.
So we were like 24 megawatts short during that period here in Texas. You know what? 1 or 2 nuclear plants, and that shit wouldn't have happened. And that doesn't mean you can't build wind and solar. It just means that, like, when you need to have more power now and it's dark and covered in ice, those don't work. And maybe we shouldn't be doing that for our backup plan at a state or a national level, I guess.
And that's what happens when you get extreme weather anywhere. Because if you look at what's happened with the hot on the West Coast this week.
The hot
rolling blackouts. And I know what it's like in Portland, Oregon when it's hot, and it's hot because you don't have air conditioning, right? And it does not cool down. It cools down more at night here than there. But you're not going to have power. And that then leads you back to a backup plan.
Yeah.
Right?
And that means you should be able to make your own power. I think, like, there was a pilot plan that I really wish every energy company in the country at least would have done. That would have been brilliant as a backup plan, and people would have got a de facto backup plan without realizing that's what they had. It was like New Hampshire or Vermont or one of those little states up there that no one goes to. I'm just messing around because I have so many friends in Free State. But I think it was New Hampshire, to be honest. And this power company said you could get a Tesla Powerwall installed $1,100.
Wow.
I want 3. Right.
Yeah.
And then if you didn't have $1,100, you could pay something like $17 a month on your electric bill until you paid the $1,100 interest free. And the philosophy of the power company was, okay, we can't keep building peakers. So peakers are, you have to build electro generation to produce way more energy than you think you will ever need to deal with peak events. And by the way, we have about a 30% loss. They generate 100 units of power, they only can deliver 70. That's loss over the transmission. So if we can store energy, we recapture some of that loss. So, like, we could build this giant, very expensive, have to go through all kinds of government shit, buy land, maintain it, battery bank to reduce our peaker need, or we can distribute, right? Decentralize as a solution. Decentralize the backup power, put the backup power out in the network. And if I have to turn off Neathy's power, but I don't have to turn off Nicole's power because of drain and demand, what I could actually do is maybe instead of turning Neathy off for like a day, turn her off like for 15 minutes and draw some power from Nicole's house, from her power wall. And then when I turn Neathy back on and she kicks on all her shit because, like, it's cold in her house now, I won't have too much draw on that system. Plus, she has her own backup power, so I can, like, maybe throttle her back or turn her off, and then she can run off her power wall for a half an hour. And they should have done this because it makes economic sense. I mean, I don't like that it's going to make the richest man in the world even richer, but it makes complete and total sense, and it's a solution that works. Like the power wall, like the solar tiles from Tesla, like, forget that shit. No. It's a non-starter. It doesn't work. The power wall works. I mean, it's pretty simple technology, really. And how many would you buy at $1,100, Nicole?
Probably 5.
You'd be done, right?
I'm out of walls. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, then the next thing you would do, okay, now you've got your battery. That's the most expensive part of a solar system. So how many people would be like, well, if I can get power, like if I can get a $7,500 power wall for $1,100, all of a sudden 4 kilowatts of solar on the roof.
Totally makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Because now I've got grid tie with battery backup, the best and most expensive solar system you got. Now you've got your distributed backup system self-charging off the sun during an outage.
Right.
But no, we don't want to do that. That's why we're talking about backup plans. Sometimes you got to do this shit for yourself because there's a perfect solution and it's actually a private sector solution. They don't need any approval to do this. But gee, it's a great idea.
The private sector solution.
It's quasi-private, right? Because it's utilities, so there's government involved. But on that note, the power companies probably could get a shitload of government money to do this with, And then everybody wins except the taxpayers, and we lose anyway on that. So at least we get something out of it. Think about all this stimulus money. Like I did this back, I figured out back during the original bailout. Remember the 2008, 2009 bailout?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the number was, like
fail.
$790 billion or something. And I'm like, I figured out you could have literally put a 2 kilowatt solar system on every owner occupied structure in the country for that amount of money. And what I said was at the time is I'm not necessarily saying we should steal money to do that. But if you're going to spend money, if you did that 15 years later, you'd still have all that energy being generated. And of the $790 billion, you guys can look this up. It's 08, 09, somewhere in there, early days of the show. I said, in 15 years, we're going to have nothing at all to show for this money. And I challenge anybody other than to show me the turtle tunnel that no turtles use in Florida, something that we have to show for that $790 billion.
Nothing.
I don't know of anything. There is a turtle tunnel in Florida, though. $9 million.
Anything for this either.
It's a fucking culvert under a highway.
Yeah.
$9 million to put a culvert under a highway.
That's an expensive culvert.
I would have put in 4.
4.
I'd have no company.
Profit.
That would have included like making a company, incorporating fees, licensing fees, buying heavy equipment. I'd have done 4, and I would have retired to Spiricodamus land off in the Caribbean, off of that one contract. I can put 4 pieces of pipe under a highway for $9 million and have a lot of backup plans by the time I'm done with it.
Okay, let's talk about our listeners who are dying to move to somewhere more free, whether it's North Carolina, Texas, or Tennessee, wherever they're going to go that's more free from where they are now. Rather than agonize over which city in which state, how would you approach that with the backup plan mentality? Knowing that when you get there, you're probably going to need to use a backup plan. Because what I see right now are people going to states and buying places out of the chute without looking at them.
Sight unseen, yep. Because of limited inventory, right?
Right. And there's an immense pressure to move right now.
I'd rent.
Yeah.
Unless you just found like the perfect place, I'd rent. And if like, you know, if you want to go into, there's so many of our people, they want to go into farming. When you say farming, if you mean actually what we would more accurately call ranching, you want to grow meat, I would rent a place to live and I would lease land to grow animals.
I agree with that, except for when I feel like meat is under attack.
So?
Right.
More of it.
Well, defending the land. Well, the way that we teach, though, there's minimal infrastructure. So that doesn't sound bad, you know, because we would do everything minimalist and you should be ready to roll out.
There's a video, Joel Salatin is in it, interviewed or actually, I don't remember exactly how it is, but he talks about renting, I think it's like 20 acres or 40 acres and running pigs on it and making 80 grand in 7 months.
Yeah.
And it's about $4,000 worth of infrastructure. But I mean, this is the whole point about leasing.
Right.
Every ounce of that infrastructure is portable.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, like this guy throws you off or whatever. Okay. Go rent some land somewhere else and do it again.
Yeah.
Then if you make some money and get good, now you can go get a farm loan and you can actually buy a place when that makes sense.
Yeah, if it makes sense, or just save between now and then, or invest in some other ways and use that to be able to buy something. Absolutely. Especially, you know, if things are headed the way what we're saying, like you're saying, if everybody right now is like, we're just waiting, right? We're waiting for everybody to go down so we go up, or up and go down.
Well, I'm going to tell you that, like, I think literally every single person in the preparedness industry or that's making their stake using the preparedness mindset other than me is more pessimistic than me. I really do. I think that there is a lot of defeatism out there of like the language you're using there, and I'm not picking on you or anything, but the way we're heading and like there's a war on me, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is Texas. Come take our cows. If you want to see Texas secede from the union, take stakes away from Texas. There's a point where I think we all need to look around and start looking at our fellow humans. I don't even want to say Americans, fellow humans, and realizing like how many people are just not going to do this. And just because you see all these purple-haired freaking people that don't even know what bathroom to use waddled out, and they have this illusion that's being created is like this is the majority of people. This is a tiny fucking minority of people that are useful idiots being used by a few maniacal people that are in power. And there is a point where people go, I don't fucking think so.
Right.
So I'm not going to alter. I'm not going to like not go into the meat business because meat's under attack. In fact, I'm going to double down.
Yeah.
Right. No. I'm going to do more because if you cut the meat supply to Kroger's, I'm not selling through Kroger's anyway. Neither are you. I'm going to sell more.
Okay. So I did not mean it that way.
Okay.
We're going big right now. And I'm growing.
I know you are. So I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying like that's
I don't want anybody to misunderstand. I don't want anybody to misunderstand. I guess, yeah.
Grow chickens, grow pigs, grow cows, grow goats.
I think everybody should grow a lot of animals right now.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I think that if you're going to do anything, I would say get into livestock and stop caring about the garden as much as the livestock. Like grow a garden for your livestock. So that if anything were to happen or go south with your livestock, your garden is there. You got backup food. That's your backup fuel. But your main fuel is your livestock. So no, and in fact, I actually show people and we talk about and we teach how to do that so that because we're also, moving towards this feed freedom piece, right?
Yeah. Feed freedom is huge. I don't know how deep we can go there tonight.
Is one of those issues that libertarians ignore in
favor
of food freedom.
Yeah.
In favor of drug freedom, like drug legalization or getting rid of the tax code or school choice or all of these other hot button issues. But food freedom is the fastest way they'll control anybody. Right. Lack of food freedom.
Right. And health independence.
You're going to do a lot to get food if you don't have something to eat.
Well, and also they don't associate it, Nicole, with health independence. So Nicole and I were doing the Rogue Food Conference together. And what I learned this year is that I was surprised. I got more coaching clients from that experience and people wanting to connect with real food in Tennessee from that whole experience or anywhere, like they all came and they were like, we need to find the people who are doing the food and we need to do this. And also we need to, learn how to gain our health back. Mm-hmm. And, I put Dr. Barry's books out on my table while we were there. He wrote that book, Lies My Doctor Told Me. We put them out and Nicole, they were sold like in less than 5 minutes, like a whole case of books. And I don't think anybody who, I don't think anyone who, like, we're all leading and participating in this. I think we thought we were talking to more producers, but I feel like there was a lot more people.
No, you're getting eaters. And I think that's a change that the conference organizers just are going to have to see a couple times.
I don't think they realize that because
they will.
Because as I was talking with everybody, that's what I was realizing as well, is there were more eaters who were looking to be prepared, which was really nice. I mean, they came there to learn how to do whatever it was.
Right, and to find contacts in their local area where they can get some of these things, because in Tennessee, you go to a farmer's market and you'll find somebody maybe.
Right.
And then, yes, the prices will be shocking to a lot of people. And then at the same time, we have farmers who can't find clients and they can't get into the markets where the people go, and the people don't go to the less well-known markets. So
and a lot of farmers can't get into those markets, period.
Right. But if you start asking around, it's like, somebody who knows somebody. I've got, as I said, I've got 10 chickens for sale because I raised too many chickens this year.
Right.
And I'll sell those out as soon as I start trying to sell them.
Right.
I haven't actually advertised it, but that's
You don't
because
have to, because I probably will send somebody to you, Nicole, and they'll just take them. But it's like, you're not going to have a problem selling the meat.
No. But I, at the same time, I have a friend who was getting rid of all his livestock right before that conference.
Right.
And he's staying in the game now. And part of the problem was that connection to people who will buy it. So I think things like that are good. To pivot back to backup plans on moving, though, because we kind of went off on this whole farm thing.
Sorry.
I'm thinking more along the lines like, just think about a time in your life where you needed to go from point A to point B. I think about when I moved from Oregon to Tennessee, like what I had in place for that was a job, and I knew where I was going to live when I got there. But the backup plans you have to have after you get on the ground, I think, are things like, what are you going to do if you lose that job? What are you going to do if you get to the house you just bought and the roof's falling in and you don't have any money to repair it? Or how are you not going to get in that situation? What are you going to do when your mom gets really sick and is across the country and you got to take care of her, but you're here and she's there? Thinking about some things like that and having that mental discussion, it's, you have to do it in a way that's not like I'm walking down the path of despair, but it empowers you to not panic when one of those things goes wrong, because probably only one of them will go wrong if something's going to go wrong.
What you're saying is failure is not an option is a stupid slogan.
Failure is not an option. It's not.
Failure is an option, right? But then what do you do when you have failure?
Because I think how you define failure, right?
Yeah,
failure is not an option, right? So failure is not an option means like I just have to make this work. Except maybe you don't. Maybe you have to make something else.
You have to make something work.
Sure, something has to work,
right?
And it's sometimes not what you think it should be. Like you that's a great point, Jack. Like you can't be so married to an idea that you feel that is the only way, and that not being able to accomplish it is failure. It's probably not. Probably there's a better idea and you just didn't think of it. Or
because here's something that actually happened to me. I took a job working for a company called Microtest many years ago. This was about 01 or 2000, somewhere in there. And so they were like, well, we need somebody to run the Northeastern region. So that was like Virginia up into Eastern Canada. And it was a really great opportunity. So like I said, yeah, I'll do it. And we lived in Texas. And they're like, we'll give you money to move. Like they threw all kinds of shit at me to get me to take the job. And then we moved. And then the day that the truck showed up and dropped everything off for us, because I would move my own stuff, except they paid for it. So why would you? And so my wife is literally down the hallway and I can hear her like singing to herself, opening boxes and taking shit out. And my new boss calls me and says, Fluke just bought our company. And I'm like, yeah, this is fuck with the new guy day. So I'm like on the very early Yahoo, like Fluke Networks Microtest. Danaher Corporation tenders offer and is accepted by board for micro. Okay, what does this mean? She's like, I don't know. There were 536 employees in that company, and 12 remained 6 months later.
Oh, man.
I ended up being one of the 12. We called ourselves the 12 Apostles. I did hang on. But that was a very real possibility of being canned for no reason, no failure, other than like one company buys another. Yeah. They do not buy a company because they like want to keep you and coddle you. They like absorb you is how buyouts work. Yeah. And I did lose my job 2 years later as they had a round of downsizing during a financial correction. And they basically just had more loyalty to their people than us. So even 2 years into it, we were still the Microtest guys. The company doesn't exist anymore. We were still the Microtest guys. So they like gave my job to somebody that had been with them for 18 years. Because it was either him or me. And they're like, well, we like him better. And it didn't matter that I was the number one sales manager in the company globally. And I was doing $500 million a year in business. They gave my job to somebody else because he was one of theirs.
That's how companies work.
And we ended up eventually moving back, but we didn't immediately because we had some backup plans in place. Like we saved money. We didn't like the number one thing is don't overextend yourself. Don't be in excessive debt. Don't need this much money to exist next month. You need this much money maybe to exist 3 months down the road. and I ran some consulting and stuff like that. And we eventually decided it was like, we only moved here for the job. So why are we staying? We didn't really come back because we had to. We came back because we wanted to. And that led us, so this is around Christmas this happens, by the way, when I finally, it was a week after Thanksgiving that I got the call I was losing my job. Mm-hmm. And so we kept my son in school till June. And then we moved back during summer break, so he wasn't moved in the middle of the school year. That was important to us because we had uprooted him in the first place. And without having, and it was nowhere near like a prepper plan, it was just basic common sense logistics. Without that, I would have had to take whatever job I could have gotten as fast as possible. Right? Because I mean, it was a high paying job. And when you have high paying jobs, you have high paying lifestyles. And then so when you lose it, it hurts more. Like I've literally talked to companies that like they wouldn't hire a person that didn't have a high salary already because they were afraid if they hired somebody that went up too much in salary, they would get too comfortable. And not that they wouldn't work, but they wouldn't be afraid. I mean, that's literally the words that were used. Yeah. We're afraid that you won't be afraid, right? Because I had a job one time. I was making about $200,000 a year, and this job I would have been into a position to make about like $7 million. And they were like, your salary history is not high enough. We think you could do the job, but you make this kind of money and you have your lifestyle in a year, you won't give a shit if you don't work for 10. And okay, I don't think we're compatible anyway, but like that is how companies think.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to think in reverse. They want to see
that you're in debt. They want to see a certain amount of debt, some companies, so that you have to have the income to service your debt.
Well, they assume if you're making a certain amount of money, you have the net, right? That's But you threw some shit in there that's like really hard, and I don't have good answers for. Like, what if I move? This did happen to us too, but we were much closer. What if I move and all of a sudden my spouse's parent is in need of care? Like we moved to Arkansas, it's only 5 hours away, and all of a sudden my father-in-law starts early stage dementia, and once you do that, as you're watching your potato and chief do right now, it continues and you end up having to do things. And like, we were the ones with the time freedom to help, but now we were geographically dislocated. And I don't have a good answer for that. Like, I don't think you can be prepared for that if they live across the street. Like that's.
Well, you can know that somebody's going to have to travel in that situation, right?
That's true.
And you may eventually have to have the plan to move the parent if it's a situation where they're far away and you can't be gone forever. But everybody I've seen face that situation, somebody goes back for 6 weeks, sometimes more, and it's the one who's not earning as much money because you can afford for them to quit their job. And if you build your lifestyle with 2 incomes and one can afford to quit their job, that's great. Or in my case, my job is very portable. Right.
Yeah.
The only thing that's hard is the coffee roaster, and even that I can take on the road if I have to, and still fulfill orders.
You roasted out of an RV before. I
have.
Do it again, right?
Yeah, it would be a royal pain in the patoot, but I could do it. And if my dad needed my care and I needed to go there, that's for months, that's what I'd have to do.
I'll tell you that dealing with dementia in a parent, and in my case, father-in-law, it was very difficult. And this is like some people don't have good relationships with their in-laws. Like I love this guy. He treated me like a son. Like he was an amazing man. And it was very hard to go through, but we kept him home as long as we could. We used like home healthcare because even when we moved back, he still was like 45 minutes away. And the day we finally decided that he needed to be in care, like he needed to be at a place so he didn't like kill himself during the day or try to kill a neighbor, because we started to get into those kind of episodes. And we took him to this facility and we worked really hard to find the best facility we could. And they were great, but we were there for an hour when we dropped him off. And they're like, basically what you need to do is you need to come in and be with him. And when he wanders off, go away and don't come back for a week. Let him, because he'll adapt. And like, they're like, trust us. But during that hour, we watched person after person walk up to the front desk and say things like, I have an architect coming in because we're going to redesign the backside of this building tomorrow and they'll be here soon.
Yeah.
And I watched the person at the front desk go, well, that's great. We'll call you when they get here. Or, so-and-so's coming to pick me up, or I'm leaving tomorrow, or anything like that. And all the person at the front desk would say was, well, that's great. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, I wish I would have saw this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because there were so many times he would say something that, like, that is completely irrational. And I'm afraid if he does that tomorrow, he's not going to remember tomorrow. And seeing people do it made me, and I was like, if I'd have known this 2 years ago, the last 2 years of our lives would have went so much better. And it makes perfect sense. So I think kind of like, if you're going to deal with something really bad, one of the things you can do to create like an on-the-fly backup plan is go where that thing is dealt with now by professionals and just shut up and watch. Because we recently had somebody reach out to us about dementia and dealing with it. Mm-hmm. In fact, you might know who it is.
I saw it.
Guy from New Zealand, right? Like, and like, I don't think you can just go to facilities like that right now because COVID, right?
Right.
It's important the old people die alone, apparently. But if you can, go see how this is dealt with so you know what you're going to have to deal with. And I think we have a tendency to not want to see it because it's uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
But we've got to see it.
You're going to see it, so you might as well see it before you have to deal with it so you know how to deal with it.
Yep. I'll tell you one I took from your first event. You had weather, the first event I was at of yours, not your first event, but my first event at your house. You had weather go through that was pretty weird.
Okay.
And I'm thinking it's flat, and flying monkeys, also known as tornadoes, happen in this sort of a weather pattern. Mm-hmm. I'm in a tent in a yard. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I was going to let myself into your house if I could get in, but
we would
the garage.
Bring everybody in the house.
Right. But because of that experience, when I planned my first event, I have the plan for what happens if tornadoes are coming, of how we communicate with everybody and get them to one of two places here. Mm-hmm. And had I not seen that, I wouldn't have thought of that until the event where it did happen this year, that flying monkeys were nearby, and I had to tell designated staff, like, you check there, you check there, you check there. Flying it's probably not going to happen, but that's what's going to happen if it happens, right?
Yeah, and that's one of those things is like, that's hard to deal with, and we've had worse events than, I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah,
but there's been worse. Like the very first one we did.
Yeah,
we literally finished the project while it poured rain, and I was like, guys, we can. They're like, oh, we're gonna do it. And I'm like, okay, as long as it's not flashing bolts of death or swirling vortexes, have fun in the rain, And I stayed out there with them, and but yeah, I mean, we've had some things like that, and that's the plan. You let everybody in the house, and then my plan is all you guys get to come in the house, and I get to stay in the middle of all of you. So I have body shields.
See,
because everybody, like, preparedness planning, like, what do they do every year when tornado season comes around? The weather guys come around on here and they're like, so what you need to do is get into your basement. And it's like, literally, there's not a fucking house in Texas. Not one. No. And then, like, if you don't have a basement, you're like, yeah, because no one does. Go into an interior room. This is the freaking kingdom of open concept. There's not a house I've ever owned or been in with an interior room in the whole damn state. I don't believe it. I know of one, but the guy built it himself. He was a builder. He built an interior room, and he poured concrete in the walls to make a tornado shelter. Like, it's the only place with a valid shelter area I've seen in the state.
I feel like your bathroom is valid.
Still has an outside wall, though. Like, that's the best.
It does have an outside wall. No windows, though.
But no windows.
Yeah.
Because if you have windows in your bathroom,
they're all frosted glass anyway.
Asking to end up in a horror movie, like weep, weep, weep. Because check it out, like when you're watching like a show that is going to be about criminal intent or something, and you see some fucker jogging, aren't you just like, you're either going to die or find a dead person? Yeah. Like as soon as you see, like, okay, I know where this is going. There's certain things you don't do. Windows in your bathroom, that's one of them. That's your backup plan. No windows in the bathroom.
I'll have to remember that. I have a window in my bathroom.
We faded.
Oh, we have like two but it's
somebody asked about crypto. So I have a real world example about crypto as a backup plan.
Yes.
And you'll remember this because I think you coordinated it, Nicole.
possible.
We have a mutual friend that grows little tiny plants,
Yes.
for businesses to serve to people on plates and
Not
fancy.
that kind of plants, guys.
Yeah, little tiny. These sell by
I
the
know what
day,
you were
but it's
thinking.
a different kind of plant, microgreens. And apparently he didn't give the overlords in Massachusetts as much money as they wanted. And even though he didn't live in Massachusetts anymore, one day they figured out he didn't give them enough of their extortion money. And they literally locked his bank accounts and seized his money.
Yes.
But it wasn't enough to pay them all the money they wanted. So he had no money. All his bank accounts gone. They were like, he needed like a couple $1,000s for like a bridge loan to get his shit back together while this was going on. So if we had sent him money in a form that would go into any bank anywhere, as soon as he used it and ran it through there, they would have seized it. So we got the community together, and I think like me and David chipped in $500, and you chipped in some money, and then other people chipped in some money, and we ended up with like $2,000 or $2,500 in like Bitcoin or something. And then he was able to take that and use it and pay the shit he needed to pay until he got out on the other side of it. So had he had that money in Bitcoin or some kind of crypto himself, when the government seized his money, he would have still had that asset. Yeah, and I don't know whatever happened. I think he was like, I'll pay it back. And we're like, why don't you pay it back into a fund and this could be used again? I don't know if that ever happened or not, but.
Well, he ponies up when there's a need.
Yeah.
There's an informal, if there's a need network that we don't talk about a lot, but yeah.
But if we try to use the banking system for that, if it's a need network, good luck with it. So when people talk about, well, the government could seize your Bitcoin, good fucking luck. And here's a real world example of where it worked. Like, there's all these things that are theoretical. I like this shit where like people, that doesn't work. Well, we fucking did it, so yes, it does. Like, we need to be thinking that way. Like, what actually has worked in the past, and because that's probably what will work again. And that was a great way that crypto saved the day. It really did.
It's nice to have a little crypto that somewhere.
And if I had some, I would agree. But since I have no crypto at all, I lost all my keys. They were all on USB drives attached to all my guns when my boat sank.
I'm like, are you serious? No.
And they're, oh no. It's all gone. I have no guns. I have no crypto, no boat. It's all gone.
There are a lot of people resistant to starting in the crypto world. And I understand why, because it's not something you can hold like these glasses, right?
Yeah.
Or like gold. And I understand holding cash and gold or whatever feels good as it's because it's something of value, or green coffee beans for that matter. But having, like watching the cryptocurrency world come into its own, putting the toe in there doesn't hurt as long as you put the little toe in, or I don't know, like just go in a way that's not going to destroy you. And then if that's the only thing left, you have it.
Well, and the people that tell you that, like, because you can't touch it or whatever, they're always the ones with all their entire retirement plan is Social Security and a 401k.
Yeah.
I know. I think it's interesting. They've never invested in anything they could touch otherwise. It was just called something different, and the entire mob is doing it.
And they don't freak out when the stock market drops and their 401k balance goes down and they're 32 years old.
Right. Because
they're like, I'm not going to have that money come out of there and for another 30, 35 years anyway. So I'm not worried about it. But they'll buy like $100 worth of Bitcoin. They literally have $100 worth of Bitcoin and it goes down 6%. So that's $6. And they freak out, and then that goes up $6, and then they're rich. But you're back where you started, first of all. Just gonna say that. But like, this mindset is weird, and it makes me think of a movie. And I have two females on the thing with me, so it's the movie, not me. But it's where Piker comes from. You guys know where Piker comes from? It comes from Boiler Room, which was like this whole like telemarketing scam stockbroker thing, right? Matt, what's his name, was like one of the lead characters in it. Vin Diesel was in it. But they bring these guys in and think they're going to be stockbrokers, and really all they are is telephone salespeople. And they're selling stocks that either don't exist or they're like penny stocks on companies that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And they're making these huge riffs on every sale. And one of the rules is, sorry guys, it's from the movie, don't pitch the bitch. And the reason they say that is, like, if you sell stock to a guy and it goes down 5%, he doesn't call you. Okay? He doesn't call you.
I don't think me or Nicole would either, right? Nicole?
You probably wouldn't, but you also wouldn't buy stock from somebody you don't know on the fucking phone.
Also,
you got to think about the quality of the person making the buy in this thing, right? And but if you sell $50,000 worth of stock to a woman and it goes down 5%, she's going to call you and want to know what to do about it. He goes, well, what happens when it goes up? He goes, well, that's even worse. And so it's not about women. It's the crypto bitch, right? Like, it has nothing to do with being female. Like, people become this weird thing when they invest in the crypto that the movement means so much more than it does. So they have a couple $100 in Litecoin or something, and they have like $400,000 of their 5% contribution from their paycheck for the last 20 years, riding in a 401k. Stock market goes down 30%, and they're like, I don't worry about it. And then they look at their crypto and they freak out.
Yeah, they lose their
They
mind.
go ballistic about it. Or worse, they go on the other side of that movie where, well, it went up 30%, so now I'm going to be a millionaire. Dude, you have $260. Like,
this is the lack mindset that has been trained into everybody, though. I mean, we're viewing money and crypto as tools, the tools that they are. And I think that I don't know that I'm gonna call them over 6% or whatever, or maybe, I mean, but I'm not gonna try to be the guy in the movie. I'm not gonna try to be the guy.
You got to see the movie to understand the context. Like, I think Nicole has seen the movie.
I feel like I saw this, but maybe I didn't.
The topic of the movie is like basically theft. But if you want to know how to be a great salesman, it's one of the greatest movies ever. Because like one of the rules is like act as if you own the company.
I think I saw this movie.
And there's
like
one
I
where
have
the
too,
guy
but I don't remember
says
it
like
well.
he's trying to get the guy to buy, and he's like, no man, you don't understand. You don't have time to wait. Like, let me open the door to my office. And he's sitting like surrounded by cubicles. And he goes, he's opening the door to my office. He holds the phone up and he goes like this. And like all the people start going fucking ape shit. He's like, the guy's like, holy fuck. Like he's got FOMO. You're missing out, right?
Right. I've seen this movie, but I mean, I don't remember all the details that you're talking about. Like, I remember that. And I feel like I have seen the rest of it, but I do get it. I think that I don't think me and Nicole are like that, though, right, Nicole?
No, that's what I said. It's not. It doesn't apply to you.
I've watched. I might have bought some crypto once through Coinbase, and I might have seen it go from $3,000 to below 1,000.
Yeah.
In a week.
And it might have gone up to 30,000.
And it might have gone up to 30,000. I don't know.
And Trout might have eaten your thumb drive with your key on it.
But I can say emotionally the first time it was like, wow, it's getting bigger and bigger, and it was like at the scale he's talking like $200 to begin with, so it's not that. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool, and then you what if yourself about, well, what if I'd put $10,000 in, and then it crashed again, and there was that initial, like, it always hurts to lose money or to perceive that you lose money, but I was like, wait a minute, I only put $200 in to begin with.
And you gotta remember,
it's still worth more than that, so.
Right.
But what you do know is that no one's going to seize it like happened to our buddy, right? And then like you have nothing, right? And people are like, we could have had cash, but he didn't.
Diversification is a big deal. I mean, shoot.
Yeah, and by diversification, it's not just stock diversification, right? Having real estate is a level of security. Right. Having things that are tradable that you use every day. For me, that's green coffee beans and whiskey.
Barter's a big
tradable. Yeah. Very useful things. Having skills where you can grow food or preserve food. All of those things make great backup plans. And if you can turn your hobby into a backup plan, that's even better. I love growing food. I love raising animals. I love preserving things a million different ways, right? not everybody loves that. I just do. It's like my zen. And because of that, when I hear about food shortages, I'm like, oh, dang, I'm not going to be able to get my whatever commercially produced thing anymore, but that's okay. I'm not going to starve.
No, we're not going to be hungry.
It's just
and I love cooking.
that Swiss chocolate, man. It's the Swiss chocolate, Neethi.
The Swiss chocolate. Have you all ever thought, like, you're talking about like using like whiskey as a payment tool? You ever thought about why we have an ATF? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearm. Doesn't it, like, there's no possible way those three things go together. It's the three most bartered commodities in the world. If you were in Soviet Russia, if you were in Soviet Russia in 1985, right, and you held up a fistful of rubles, cabs would drive past you. If you held up a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, they'd pull over, right? So like part of your backup plan is, what do you have of value that isn't money but could be used like a currency, right? Like, and if you think about, like, if you go into Mozambique, there's value in a case of ammo. There's value in a case of Marlboro cigarettes, right? There is value in a case of vodka.
Yep.
And fortunately, they haven't regulated this heavily yet, but I think there would be probably value in a case of roasted coffee beans. Like, people will tender some consideration for things that make their life a little bit better or a little bit safer.
And meat.
And meat.
Don't forget the meat.
Food.
Meat queen.
Food.
What were you about to say, Neethi, before Jack went into the barter thing?
I forgot. I was just saying that I do use all those things for, for my barter.
Yeah.
I mean, and I use
all
them for my backup. Things. I use them for my backup plan too, for my speakeasy.
Hypothetically.
My hypothetical speakeasy, Yeah.
We need to use the word speakeasy more.
We do. I think we need to bring the speakeasy back.
We do.
I think they're coming back.
They are back.
Jack, I was quoting you a lot. I like a lot of your words. I've been talking about you a lot, but because you simplify things for me, and it's really nice. I love it. It really helps me. I'm like, yes, that was what I was saying. So I've been using a lot of Jackisms. But I'm still, you were on vacation, and right before you went on vacation, then you did that interview with the futures guy that I'm sorry, I don't remember, but I loved that interview. And when he's talking about the 20s and the roaring 20s and just everything he was saying, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking that, and I actually have been creating something for that. And then he said it, and I felt so like.
That must have been Gerald Celente, I guess.
I think so. The New York guy.
Yeah. He's cool.
He's very cool. And I was just like, I mean, I really felt like I had earned all my accolades that day when I was listening to him. I was just like, dude, if you guys could see what we're working on and what we did and how that's going, and then listen to that interview, I was like, yes.
Well, his grand plan is to create a church, a political church.
That would be perfect. I'm ready for
it. Church, and he wants to create a political church so that, like, when you try to attack it, you can't do it. It's a church.
Yeah, we need an agorist church. 100%.
I would love to talk to him, because I was just like in the background, like cracking up the whole time, and I kept having to rewind to listen, and I was like going, "Oh my God, this is too surreal." But it really made me, it really actually gave me a lot of confidence and more power towards what I'm doing already, because I just felt like, I love this guy. This is amazing. And we seem to be right on track. That's good,
I think the more stories we hear like that, the more people are empowered who are already walking down that path. And it's really important.
I do like this Agorist church idea. And I think we have like one commandment. We make it sound all official. Thou shalt not hurt people nor take their stuff. Right? If we just say don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, it sounds very, but thou shalt not. Well, now it's religious. And we can even have two commandments. Thou shalt not hurt people nor take their stuff. and thou shalt not allow others to be harmed or their stuff to be taken. And that pretty much means that our religion commands us to not pay you bastards your tribute. And I'm not a tax protester. I am not disobeying the law. I am obeying my faith.
Is it Hutterites or what's it's a subset of an Amish?
Hutterites.
They actually got a tax exemption because of their religious,
but not for everything, right? It's like,
but not for everything. And a lot of times when you get that, your tax dollars have to go somewhere charitable.
I would be fine with.
They also were burned and hung and persecuted all over the world. But
I would be fine with, this is how much money you would owe Mr. Spirko. But as long as you give it all to causes that are charitable, you don't have to pay us. I don't know about fine. I would be much better with that.
Yeah.
And actually, this is theorized as a method of taxation in a book by a guy named Richard Bach. And I think it's called Nothing by Chance is the book that it's in, where he travels through time into the future, and he ends up like in the backseat of an airplane that his older self is flying, and he gets to see the world of the future. And like, he's like, well, what were you doing? Like he thought that the future him was trying to kill somebody in an airplane battle. And like, wars are now fought like war games, like no one actually dies. And he's like, so what comes out of this? He goes, no, it's more like the Olympics. It's not real. But like, we just do this once in a while, and it's like laser tag with airplanes. And he's like, well, then like, how does everything get paid for now? And he's like, oh, we still pay taxes. And he's like, oh, okay, well, how? He's like, well, we get our tax form, and there's all the categories of the ways that our money can be spent.
Yep.
And we fill in, like, I want 10% to go here, 20% to go there, 30% to go there, and the rest to go here. And
that's how the philanthropy always worked before. I mean, that was the whole thing. Like when you know, right now when everybody's like, you know, bitching about the whole women don't get paid as much as men. Well, men used to get paid for themselves and their wives. It was always that the couple was being paid, and nobody.
Go ahead.
No man was able to have a position of power who wasn't married. And that was because they wanted for his home life to be secure and for him to be well fed and whatever, and everything to be taken care of. It was a balance. And the wife's job was to seek out and you know, and have the boots on the ground to have the philanthropic investment for the company within the town or the community. And that was how the company made sure that they not only took care of this couple, but they took care of the community that they were immersed in.
Well, and I mean, right now, this whole wage gap thing is bullshit.
Right.
Because if you compare like to like, women are actually paid more than men. It's not equal. Women are paid better than men in the same position. If you equate the averages, there turns out there's a lot of high paying jobs that fucking women don't want to do. And I don't blame them, because I don't want to do them. We have a friend, Nicole, who climbs up on giant poles and deals with shit that can fry you.
Yeah.
Not a lot of women in that job. Not because they won't hire women. Fucking women don't want to climb poles in the middle of a thunderstorm and fuck with electricity. And I'm not putting you down for it. I don't blame you. Then the other thing is, inside corporate entities, there is a reality that the people that rise to the highest level are going to be the people that, when they're at the lower levels and their boss comes in and goes, I need somebody to work till 9 o'clock tonight and not get paid, men are more likely to do it than women. It's not an accusation of anything, but especially once you start a family, a woman's like, I got to get home and take care of my kid.
Right.
And it's just probably a negative thing about men. Like, I'm not putting down women. I'm saying, like, we are heartless bastards, and we'll be like, hey, honey, I'm not going to be there. But that's what gets you ahead. So when you put those two things, if you take those two pieces out, women are paid more than men on average. Women have higher levels of college graduation rates. I mean, like, this is all a mythology. I don't know how we got here, but
I mean, that's statistical spin. That whole thing is statistical spin, where they've made it to support or to create a problem that they then need to fix.
Yeah.
And the way to fix this is wage fairness, where you set the wage based on the person's time at the company and education, which is how teachers are paid. And it doesn't work in the education system either very well.
Oh, it sucks so
I know.
much.
I was there once.
I mean,
It's
these
just
are
that-
just one of those one more shiny bright lights for divisiveness. And so
Yeah.
sorry I brought it up because,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I forgot what you said, Jack, that made me even say it, but
that was 10 minutes ago.
yeah, I don't know.
This is an alcohol filled fiasco for me.
I see.
A what?
I've been on the fizzy water today.
My water's fizzy. It's just
I decided to join you with some bourbon, Jack. So
see, I knew it. I knew I was not alone in this.
Yeah.
no, I don't normally, but I saw you and I was like,
That looks good.
This is not even real beer.
no.
It isn't.
How is that standing up to this beautifulness?
But there's
I like the glass you have, Nisi.
Thank you. These were like some anniversary glasses that we were gifted, and so I had my bartender over here.
Well, we're coming up close on time now. Let's go once around the horn and just say something that you should have thought about a backup plan for that maybe you have not thought about a backup plan for. And I know that's a hard question because we're known for our backup plans in our network, but there's always room for improvement. You got one, Nisi?
I'm seeking advice, and I'm open to receive the advice from anyone.
well,
So I'm renting this space, and I have all of our freezers and fridges, which obviously are very, very vital for us. And I'm not in a moment where we can do walk-ins. And I think, like whatever this is, this Tesla wall or whatever you're talking about, Jack. I need something because it's the space that we're in is not my own. I don't own it. But I do need to be able to secure. I know I need a backup plan. Now I do have a
For electricity going out?
Yeah, I have a solar backup generator, but it's not going to be enough to run all those.
were you running freezers?
Yeah, freezers.
How many?
You need a generator.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a generator that's solar powered.
No.
No, you need a.
No. I mean, we have regular generators, but
Okay.
I'm saying I would like to have a better solution for
hackmysolar.com.
what is
I
it?
don't think solar is going to cut it though. I think that like if you want a better solution than a generator is 2 generators. Can you
You have 10 generators? Well, like I'm just thinking, like, what can I do that is
can you logistically have a big giant like 500 gallon, and these can go away later, propane tank at this location? Because an on-demand, like the best thing you could have is an on-demand propane or natural gas. Do you have natural gas there? Powered generator that like it's 3:00 in the morning, the power goes out, you're over here asleep, and the generator just goes, oh, boop. And like that is, and if you have natural gas service there, it will run for the cockroaches will rule the world, and that generator will still be running.
Yep.
does that generator have to be outside?
Yes.
Right. So I know that.
But they're made to go outside. They're made by a company called, the best company in the world for this is called Generac. And they are made to live outside, and they're awesome. Like, so what you need your generator to do is like once every 30 days, you should start your generator, put a load on it, run it for a little bit, shut it back down, make sure it's working so it doesn't just sit there. And the Generac propane or the Generac gas generators, either natural gas or propane,
right.
They literally like go, oh, they have intelligence in them. It's like, oh, it's time. And they like start themselves up. They generate a little bit of a load, and then they shut themselves back down. So like they even service themselves to a degree. And that's, if you want to make sure meat doesn't go bad, and you could have tens of thousands of dollars of inventory lost, like, and even legally, maybe it's still okay, but legally it wasn't the way it was supposed to be for some time that some bureaucrat came up with. Like, that's what I would do. And
I brought up Hack My Solar because Sean would have probably analyzed it that way, not solar, but
yeah. He would give, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, Sean would give you a great answer. Like, I would give Sean all your shit and let him spec something for you.
Yeah, he could totally like.
Who's Sean?
I know.
Sean
Somebody
Mills.
I will be glad to introduce you to right after this via email.
Thank you.
He does consulting on this sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's great at it.
Great. That's what I need.
So much money, man. You could be destroyed by a power outage.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's what I need to.
Unless it was 9 degrees outside, then she would have been fine.
They'd be fine.
Yeah.
My ice maker froze up.
That's kind of funny.
So currently, we are like.
Your ice maker made ice. Yay. Except for, I'm sure it froze up in a bad way.
My ice maker froze solid. Like it literally like froze. Like, yeah, like that's how cold it was. The ice maker couldn't survive.
Okay, Jack, what's one of yours that time to think about a backup plan on?
I'm going to just flip it a little bit differently. I think one of the problems that we have in our space, like the prepper space, the Liberty space, etc., is we get too pessimistic and we only plan for failure. I think we also need to have a plan for success. And a plan for success doesn't mean, okay, so that means I don't have to do anything. Like, we need to make sure that we're invested in ways that if everybody does well, we're not left behind. Yeah. Because I think there's so many people that are like, well, I don't care if I'm in debt because when the economy crashes, I won't have to pay it anyway.
I know somebody who lost everything that way.
Yeah.
In 2008. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I just think that's insane. Like, I think I don't have a specific example for mine, but I think what you have to have is this plan that if everything stays what it is, you do okay. And if everything gets better, you do okay. And if everything gets worse, you do okay. Like at least you have to plan for all those variables. And I mean, this comes from like kind of my stock investing philosophy. Like I try to collar stocks, which we can't get into, but like if the stock stays the same, I basically stay the same. If it goes up, then I make money. And if it goes down, then I make money. And I make less money than if I had only played one side of it.
Right.
But no matter what happens, I either break even or I make money. Right. And like, that's how we have to start managing our lives because, man, part of why I got on you a little, it wasn't really you, Neethi, but I kind of like went off a little bit earlier when you're like, the meat's under attack. Like, bullshit. I got like 5 cows then. Like, because there's so much defeatism.
There is.
In our space of like, well, they're going to take over. I had a guy today on my live stream tell me that like, well, the HOAs or the property insurance companies or something like that are going to take our guns. And I'm like, you know what? If your home insurance company takes your gun, you deserve to have your gun taken. Like,
turn off your home insurance.
Get a different company, whatever. Like, like we need to have this. Our backup plans also need to be what happens if everything gets really good? How do I maximize in every market? And I think that's way overlooked because people either plan nothing's going to go wrong, everything's going to be great, or there's going to be failure. And that's where I think the big holes come from because it's going to be all of those and it's going to do this.
Yeah.
That's history and it's going to go up and down. Nicole, what about you?
Great. I get to follow that one. I think the thing I'm going to make a backup plan for is it's a business thing. What happens when I physically can't do it? And because I've purposely built this lifestyle that I don't have employees. But then if I get really sick, so what does that look like from a long-term standpoint into my future? Welcome to
episode 97, Rewind of Living Free in Tennessee.
Already got that in place.
Yeah, that's one side of it. That's
the replays. They're totally replays. I did not rip that idea off from you at all, Jack.
The replays, not rewinds, right? That's a really great point. It made me think of something that is maybe even a better answer than I gave myself. What if you die?
Yeah.
People think like life insurance, that's only one thing. Like Dorothy and I've talked about, like, what if I get hit by a freaking gravel truck? Like I'm always talking about, like, well, how does she get all her crypto? Because she's not really crypto savvy. Like, how does she deal with? Who did she talk to? Who's a transitional stage of my business? I have someone that takes care of like my servers and everything. My business is set up so that if there's never a podcast again tomorrow, I get hit by lightning.
Yeah.
It is reasonable that income will come in for at least 5, if not 10 years. But certain things need to happen for that to stay in place. Like you have to have a plan to die that's beyond I have life insurance, right? Especially if you have assets and a going concern. Like if you die, Nicole, I'll cry all your friends will cry. But you're not really, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you really have like dependents.
No, the problem is the community I've built.
And how do they go on without you?
And I've been thinking about putting this land in a trust because it's become the gathering place.
What's the continuation? What you could do is create a trust.
Yeah.
You don't put the land in it.
Yeah.
Create a trust that becomes the beneficiary if you die.
Right.
Right. And that, like, see, like, that's something like right there. Like, it seems like a really good idea. We'll put it in a trust. Well,
except for now, it's stuck in a trust and I need it. Yeah.
Or you go ahead and put it in a trust because it's good asset protection.
Yeah.
But you are the sole trustee, but the trust becomes inherited by the community, right? There's
right.
Like,
yeah.
So
like,
we
talk to a lawyer, right? Like, that is a good backup plan. And I know a lawyer who needs work.
Maybe I should reach out to him. If only I knew his email.
Yeah. And also I need to talk to him about lots of trust for land. Yeah. Remember, we need to have that conversation sometime, Jack.
You might need to have a land trust lawyer for that. As much as I want to send him business, lawyers have different specializations.
Right.
And like, if you need a heart transplant and you go to like a general surgeon, they're like, I can do this, but I really think a cardiologist surgeon should do this, right? Yeah. And lawyers are like they always say doctor or lawyer, like they kind of are the same in that there's like specialized areas. But land trust is, I
have friends.
There's so much you can do with trust. Like, that's another thing we could talk about. Like, our mutual friend of ours, Nicole David, like, he owns suppressors with a tax stamp.
Yeah.
But it's legally illegal if I own this gun and this suppressor completely legally and I let you have it. If you go trick, it could actually be illegal if we're standing next to each other.
Right. So
he has trusts own his class 3 stuff.
Yes.
And then he makes anybody he wants to be able to use it a member of the trust.
That sounds like David.
Man, we need to do that topic.
We need to get him on this show.
If we can get him on the show. He doesn't. I've tried to get him on my show for 7 years. And I've known him so long, I was throwing him out of bars before I knew who he was.
I know how to trick him into giving you content, but you got to catch him just at the right time.
You can get him to email you content, but talking, that's the hard part.
Oh, no, I get him talking, but that's...
But you record him without his knowledge?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
But with his permission.
Oh, you trick him into giving you permission without his knowledge.
Well, then he knows. I mean, he eventually knows.
Eventually knows.
But he's not on the hook when it happens, man.
I got you. I think we're about wrapped up there.
Yeah, I think that's good for episode 46 of Unloose the Goose. Thanks for joining in. We got Neethi the pharmacist from Farm to Fork Meat Right. Check out her website. Jack Spirko of the Survival Podcast. And I'm Nicole Sauce with the Living